Hey there, sci-fi lovers. Welcome to our channel, where the universe unfolds and the impossible becomes real. If you're as passionate about the unknown as we are, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more mind-bending adventures just for you.
Time. The Galactic Tavern hummed with the low murmur of conversations in a dozen different languages, punctuated by the occasional clink of glasses and the soft whoosh of the airlocks sealing off rooms where alien patrons indulged in their strange, private pleasures. Deep within an asteroid that drifted in the uncharted void beyond the farthest fringes of mapped space, the tavern was a sanctuary, a haven for the galaxy's most secretive and dangerous figures. Diplomats, outlaws, smugglers, and creatures who defied easy categorization gathered here, knowing that once they stepped through the hidden entrance, their secrets were safe. What happened in the Galactic Tavern stayed in the Galactic Tavern. The dim light of the place barely cut through the smoke and haze, casting long, distorted shadows across the mismatched furniture and ancient star maps that adorned the walls. Rich Covert, the enigmatic owner, watched over the proceedings from his usual place behind the central bar. His sharp eyes took in every patron, calculating risks, weighing tensions, and making silent decisions to preserve the uneasy peace that reigned here. He was the only law the tavern knew, and his neutrality was fiercely guarded. No one dared break it. Tonight, as the usual mix of smugglers traded illicit goods and diplomats whispered in guarded tones, a new figure stepped into the light, or rather, flickered into it. He was tall, humanoid, but gaunt, his skin a sickly shade of pale, and his eyes sunken deep into his skull. His clothes were old, worn in places, and patched with fabric from different times and fashions. He carried himself with an air of both desperation and exhaustion, as though the weight of centuries rested upon his shoulders. He glanced around warily before making his way to the bar. Rich Covert raised an eyebrow but said nothing, simply sliding a glass of something dark and viscous toward the newcomer. The man nodded his thanks, took a cautious sip, and winced. "You look like someone who's seen too much," Rich said quietly, leaning against the bar. "But that's not unusual here." The man let out a soft, bitter chuckle. "You've no idea." Rich didn't press, but he knew this kind. New patrons always had a story, and sooner or later, they all told it. The man took another sip, shuddered, and then spoke. "They call me Dravik. I suppose that's as good a name as any. And yes, I've seen too much, more than most will ever know." His voice was rough, worn, as though time itself had ground it down. "I've seen the past, the future, and every shadowy path in between." "Time traveler," someone muttered from a nearby booth, and a few heads turned, interest piqued. Time travel was a dangerous game, and those who played it often didn't live long enough to tell their tales. Dravik gave a slow nod. "That's right. I've walked through the corridors of time, stepped across the centuries, and seen the rise and fall of civilizations. But it wasn't until I stumbled into the black market for time that I truly understood what it means to lose it." Rich's expression remained neutral, though he leaned in a fraction closer. "Black market for time? Haven't heard of that one." "You wouldn't have," Dravik said, his gaze distant, haunted. "It's not something you can find on any star map or trade route. No, this market exists in the cracks between moments, in places where time itself bends and warps. It's hidden, secret, and for good reason." The other patrons were listening now, the hum of conversation dying down as Dravik's voice carried across the room. Rich gave him a silent nod, an unspoken permission to continue. "It started with a rumor, as these things often do," Dravik said, setting his glass down and staring into the liquid as though it held the secrets of the universe. "I'd heard whispers, stories of a place where you could buy time. Minutes, hours, even years if you had the credits. People said it was real, but no one knew how to get there.
Some claimed it was a myth, a story to frighten children. But I knew better. I'd seen enough strange things in my travels to know that the impossible was often just another market waiting to be exploited. He paused, took a deep breath, and then continued. It took me years to find the entrance, years of following dead leads, chasing shadows through forgotten worlds. But eventually, I found it. A gateway hidden in the ruins of a dead civilization, a doorway that didn't belong to any time or place I'd ever known. It led me to the market. What did it look like? Asked a voice from the back, a grizzled merchant whose eyes gleamed with curiosity.
Dravik hesitated. It's hard to describe. Imagine a place where every moment exists at once, overlapping, intersecting. A bazaar that stretches across time itself. The vendors there, they weren't like anything I'd ever seen. Some looked human, others didn't. But they all had one thing in common. They dealt in time. Not just as a concept, but as a commodity. You could buy hours, days, even whole lifetimes bottled up and ready for sale. A ripple of disbelief spread through the room. Some scoffed, others whispered to their companions, but Dravik didn't seem to care. His eyes darkened as he spoke. At first, it seemed like a miracle. Imagine it. More time to live, to love, to achieve. People were willing to pay anything for it. And the price? Oh, it was steep. You didn't pay in credits or goods. You paid in memories, in moments you'd already lived. Every transaction took a piece of you, something you could never get back. What did you buy? Someone asked, leaning forward. Dravik's lips twisted into a bitter smile. A few years, at first. I thought I was clever. I paid for them with days I didn't care about. Mundane moments, hours of boredom, time I thought was worthless. I gained years in return, but I didn't realize what I'd lost until much later. He rubbed his temples as though trying to ease a deep, aching pain. Those moments, those days I thought were meaningless, they were the foundation of my life. Without them, I started to forget who I was. Little things at first, a name, a face, a place I'd been. But it grew worse. I lost whole years of my past, pieces of my identity slipping away into the void. And the more time I bought, the more I lost of myself. A heavy silence fell over the tavern as his words sank in. Dravik's haunted expression spoke of a man who had lived through unimaginable loss. I tried to stop, he said quietly. But it was too late. Time is a drug, and once you've tasted it, you can't go back. You keep wanting more life, more years, more chances to undo your mistakes. But every purchase takes something from you, and soon you're left with nothing but fragments. A low murmur spread through the crowd as patrons exchanged uneasy glances. The Galactic Tavern had seen its share of strange tales, but this one carried a weight that chilled the room. And now? Rich asked, his voice cutting through the silence. Now, Dravik echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. Now I'm a ghost, a man out of time with no past and no future. The market. It took everything from me. I don't even know how long I've been traveling. Days, years, centuries, it all blurs together. I came here hoping for one last drink before I fade away entirely. Rich nodded, pouring another glass without a word. Dravik took it with trembling hands, raising it in a silent toast to the lost fragments of his life. Beware the black market for time, he said, his voice hollow. It promises eternity, but it only leaves you with an empty shell. The Galactic Tavern fell into a deep, uneasy quiet as Dravik drained his glass, the echoes of his warning lingering long after he disappeared into the shadows of the room, leaving the patrons to wonder how much time they had left and what price they were willing to pay to keep it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this cosmic journey. If you enjoyed the ride, please hit that subscribe button and share the adventure with others. Your support means the world to us, and helps us bring you even more incredible stories. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the stars.